Let's put our palms together and do homage. Homage to the fundamental teacher Buddha Shakyamuni. Homage to the wisdom warrior Manjushri. Homage to all the benevolent lineage masters. With all of your kindness and love, let your wisdom's shining light clear the darkness of my ignorance once and for all. Grant me, I pray, the intelligence, the brilliance to understand the scriptures, both the word and the treatises. Until awakening, I take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. To accomplish the welfare of self and others, I give rise to bodhicitta. Okay, so we're going to go through in the future. If you want to use PowerPoint to outline your summary, or you can go directly on the PDF file. Either way, whichever way you feel better is good. So we don't have a fixed format, but the point is to go over the content. So this is the book title, Transforming Suffering and Happiness into Enlightenment, and by original text by Dojo Chin Jime Tenpe Nyima, and the teaching is given by Khenpo Sodargye. I'll directly go to the, I do make an outline of the entire text, not complete yet, but that will tell us where we are and what this text is about. So the book is Transforming Suffering and Happiness into Enlightenment. And so there are three parts. The first is homage, statement of intent. This is the initial teaching, and then the middle teaching, including two main parts. How to use suffering as the path to enlightenment. And then its second part is how to use happiness as the path to enlightenment. It somehow it dropped over here. And then so we'll go for today, we'll for the how to use suffering as the path to enlightenment. There are two ways. One is through relative truth, one is through ultimate truth. So the emphasis apparently on the relative truth part, because that's easier for most people. So and then for today, lesson 1, we're going to cover the explanation about the title, the author's intent, and a little bit of the first part, the how to use suffering as the path. Mainly talking about the secret of the mind. Secret of the mind covers many sub-contents. My computer is a little stuck. Sorry. It seems like I cannot do much about it right now. Well, at least I can transform over to the other side. So, well, for these little subtitles, it's not that important at the moment. So, after we go over the content, I'm going to have some questions for discussion, and then we have dedication. But when I go over the content, we can also you can also stop me and say, I have questions here, I don't understand. Just can you explain a little more? I'll be happy to do that. And at any time, you can stop me and ask your questions. Share the PPT. Yes, I will share the PPT. But I'm not really using much PPT. I'm mostly just go over the PDF file that we should already have. So if we look at the content of this text, see, you can see it here from the right side. So the first, the content is lecture 1, understand the secret of the mind, and that's the main theme for lesson 1 and explain title, also the homage and the intent, and then goes to the main teaching of the secret of the mind. So I guess everybody here is familiar with Khenpo Sodargye. He is a widely renowned practitioner, also scholar, and have translated many Tibetan texts into Chinese. And also many of his teachings are translated into English and French and German, all sorts of different languages. So lecture 1. So first part is the title of the text, the transforming suffering and happiness into enlightenment. Some says into path. It's the same meaning, because the path eventually lead to enlightenment, right? So this is about the mind training, in fact, because when the suffering and happiness is absolutely kind of a mind thing. It may have outside trigger, but in the end, it's the mind that feel the happiness or feel the suffering. So so Khenpo first in the very beginning, he says this is so essentially everyone in the world experience suffering and happiness. It's just a fact of a human life. Some may have more suffering, some may have more happiness, but it's just a phenomena of the human beings. And then ordinary people, he always compare ordinary people and the Dharma practitioners. Ordinary people pursue happiness and avoid suffering at all cost. But Dharma practitioners, they take advantage of suffering and happiness, and then view it as a path or an opportunity to train the mind and to gain enlightenment. So they see both suffering and happiness as favorable conditions for practice, with which to further the spiritual practice. So this is the point. So why do we need to transform our mind, transform happiness and suffering? So this is a question. Again, for ordinary people, so the main question is like, normally we want to transform suffering because we want to avoid suffering, but why do we also want to transform happiness? Again, it depends on the people, right? People's faculty. For ordinary people, they want to keep happiness because that's what they pursue. They want to avoid suffering, but in the terms of happiness, they want to, because they want to keep it, they may become, because they are happy, they become arrogant because they are satisfied, right? And then they may become arrogant and begin look down upon others. And so in this sense, so both suffering and happiness have the potential to engender a negative mindset in ordinary people, because when the happiness, during the happy time, they develop this arrogant attitude, feel satisfied, and so graduate, and then they no longer make much progress. Plus, the happy time may be just temporary, and then ultimately it may turn, if it changes, they may feel suffer. So that's why I say it's not sustainable. And in the meantime, when Khenpo explain why happiness is not sustainable, he also says, only with great merit or virtue can one enjoy the acquisition of great wealth and high reputation without the accumulation of bad karma. So if we want to achieve sustainable happiness, most of happiness are transient, right? But if one has great merit and virtues in accumulate in the past life or in the first part of the life, they may be able to have some sustainable happiness. Yet again, it's still temporary, right? Even our life is temporary. So if we just embrace happiness and reject suffering, this is a shallow idea. It's not grounded in reality. But then for practitioners, unless both suffering and happiness are transformed into the path to enlightenment, they cannot help but bring harm into one's life. So that's the point here. And also Khenpo pointed out, suffering is easier to cope with than happiness, because this is for practitioners. Because when they face suffering, they realize life is not reliable. It's not the world is not worth to cling into, and so they want to change. So they become more diligent in practice. And Khenpo also use the examples in Naronga, when the condition was very poor, people practiced very hard. And however, for some practitioners, when they made progress and they become famous and they become Dharma teachers, they gain support from the followers, they may become more arrogant, then it become harder for them to make more progress. And that's for, I think for ordinary people, it's the same, like for non-practitioners. It is the same. It really needs a little more effort to transform happiness. So then why do we need to practice? So if we want to transform suffering and happiness, the only way we want to do it is to practice. Because this is like more like our mind always tend to think in the same way. If something negative happens, we tend to think. This is very typical for friends, between friends. When one person does something bad to the other person will think in the future this person will do the same bad thing to me again. So the friendship starts to dissolve, right? So when something negative happens, one tends to hold on to that negative, and then eventually there's a text in next few lines will say, eventually even the smallest event will become like a trigger for holding all the negativity. So without Dharma practice, so in this way, a life with a shaved head, or this is just talk about the ordinary people in the monastery. So all those outside, like you put on the sangha robes, or you shave your head, all those external things, even Khenpo even said that even when you recite refuge vows, all those external behavioral things, titles wouldn't change, wouldn't transform your mind. And it's only when you actually take self-reflection and make up your mind to change your mind, then that can happen. So practicing the instruction, Dharma's instruction is crucial. If you practice for a long time, you will be more ready to accept these sufferings, which are otherwise hard to bear. So Khenpo also further to say that this is particularly important for lower days people. Why is that? Because he said in the later text, and that there are many different mental conditions, mental illness in the nowadays society. And then next, the introduction to the author of the text. The name is Doju Qin Jimei Tenpe Nyima. He was Dongzhu Nimba's 8 sons, oldest of the 8 sons. So Dongzhu Nimba was also a great master. His birth year was 1926, passed away, but birth year 1865, passed away 1926. He was a disciple of Mipa Rinpoche. I think we all know Mipa Rinpoche, and Jimei Pentu Rinpoche, his Holiness Jimei Pentu Rinpoche also say Pachi Rinpoche because of his he was able to explain the way of the Bodhisattva. This is another great teaching by Shantideva. He was able to explain the way of Bodhisattva at the age of 8. So Pachi Rinpoche raised him, say, this is the hope of Nyima practice. So he was very eloquent in poems and songs, and his poems and songs were like comparable to Mipa Rinpoche and the Nongchenpa. These two people were like very rhetoric and very proficient in poetry and writing, so very elegant. So his level is at that, and also because Tenpe did not really give too much in explanation, but he explained, he translated this text during COVID time, and so took good use of his quiet time. So next to the root text, start the homage. So I'll read the homage, go briefly. I pay homage to the noble Avalokiteshvara, recalling his qualities, forever joyful at the happiness of others, and plunged into sorrow whenever they suffer. You have fully realized great compassion with all its qualities and abide without a care for your own happiness or suffering. So, so he paid homage to Avalokiteshvara, and we know this is the Avalokiteshvara is a symbol of great kindness and compassion to all sentient beings. So, so here it says plunged into sorrow whenever the others suffer. So this is a practice, we call it Tonen, right? It's here somewhere. Oh, sorry. I want to point out the word, but we'll just go through here. Tonen, T-O-N-G-L-E-N. This is the exchange of self and others. So when others suffer, and this great bodhisattva also feel the suffering, and when they don't really care for their own happiness or suffering, they just fully have full compassion for others. So Tonen, it just we explained in last text, meaning you want to give all your happiness to others, all your good things happening to you, you want to share with others or give it to others, and you want to take in all the sufferings, bad things of others into yourself to suffer for them so they can be relieved. So it's a meditation practice, and it's a way to cultivate bodhicitta and compassion, great compassion. So bodhisattvas can do that because they do not cling to their own happiness and suffering, but they are they are sympathetic towards the others. So this is different, like Master Jizang says, ordinary beings generate revulsion when seeing the happiness of others. They get jealousy, while they are relieved from the suffering of others. Bodhisattvas, on the other hand, rejoice in living beings' happiness and grieve over their suffering. So this is the difference. And again, for ordinary people, it is normal to pursue their own happiness and get rid of the suffering. And then when towards others, they may do opposite. And it's because lack of compassion, right? So this happens, I think, relatively rare in the Western society because of the education, which is a very good thing. But for Mahayana practitioners, we don't do that. We want to put all other people's benefits in front of our own. So because the Avalokiteshvara, because he realizes the equality of self and others, the equality of self and others, so he can have this great compassion. In the word, in the original text, there's a recalling his qualities. So over here, so this actually gives us the way of practice. When we do the prayer, when we read the text, we want to reflect in our mind. So this is a very common practice method. When we read the text, don't just let the text slip your mouth, and instead we should reflect the text and grasp the meaning, and then make the vow in ourselves. And Khenpo said, especially here, say when we read the text and when we recalling the qualities of Avalokiteshvara, we want to do such aspiration. May I one day acquire the same qualities and the realizations as Avalokiteshvara has, so that I may be able to benefit the living beings by taking their sufferings upon myself and giving them my happiness. So we do that with our body, speech, and mind, because we're reciting it, we say it, and in the mind, we make actually this aspiration to ourselves. So this is the way when we do our prayer. It's a very important method. So by doing this, gradually we will become imbued with all of his worldly and transcendent qualities of Avalokiteshvara. So that's Khenpo's little piece instruction on practice. So the intent, next, the author's intent in composing the text. So I'm going to put down here, this is original text, root text. When you see the root text, this is original text by Tenpe Nyima. I'm going to put down here a partial instruction on how to use both happiness and suffering as the path to enlightenment. This is indispensable for leading a spiritual life, a most needed tool of the noble ones, and quite the most priceless teaching in the world. There are two parts. One, how to use suffering as the path. Two, how to use happiness as the path. Each one is approached first through relative truth and then through absolute truth. So this is the statement of intent. I think it explains on its own, and then Khenpo quoted Mipa Rinpoche's the Just King says, "The wise with deep insight improve, no matter what good or bad they experience. The foolish, lacking self-reflection, gain nothing from witnessing hundreds of different forms of happiness and suffering." So So do we want to be the wise to improve, or do we want to be the foolish to just watch everything happen without much self-reflection and then just let it slip? Just like so the wise can learn and reflect because they use reflection deeply, right? And then the foolish just let everything happen in front of them because they don't think about it, they don't contemplate, and then daily life will be just like driven by their karma and just go over and gain nothing in this lifetime and not to learn much. So we don't want to be the foolish, we want to be the wise. So we want to practice, we want to learn this text. That's the main reason. That's also the author's intent. And this is also why we want to study this text, right? So then he talked about, he always choose two levels of the explanation. One is relative truth, one is absolute truth. So these two concepts is the relative truth and the absolute truth. Sometimes absolute truth is also called ultimate truth. Are very important in understanding many Buddhism teachings. For daily life, we can use both ways to approach, but at the relative truth level, because it's more like our ordinary thinking, our normal daily thinking, so it's easier for us to absorb and digest. So that's why this whole text put more emphasis on the relative truth part. And Khenpo also said, and ultimate truth can hardly be put into practice for most ordinary practitioners or those who haven't learned the philosophy of Nidayamaka. So we're just like easy to approach from the relative truth side. So now we go to the secret of the mind. Root text is how to use suffering as a path to enlightenment. Number one is through relative truth. Number two will be in the future through absolute truth. So whenever we are harmed by sentient beings or anything else, if we make a habit out of perceiving only the suffering, then when even the smallest problem comes up, it will cause enormous anguish in our mind. This is because the nature of any perception or idea, be it happiness or sorrow, is to grow stronger and stronger the more we become accustomed to it. So this is the kind of the secret of the mind, because our mind tend to strengthen whatever is already there. So if we view everything negative, we'll make it a habit of negative thinking. If we change our mind, turn to the positive thinking, gradually we'll become happier and become more positive about all the things. So talking about harmed, and this is the first sentence, harmed by sentient beings or anything else, other people or animals, other things like environmental disasters, all those things, or poorly built stairs, lack of success in business, these are all other things, anything else. So now the truly secret of the mind, how habitual thinking works. If you are of the mindset that all these harms by sentient beings or other things are annoying and that they make you feel terrible, afflicted, hopeless, or heartbroken, then eventually you will make a habit out of perceiving only the suffering, and you will soon find that thoughts of suffering and the negativity are the only thoughts that you have. So, and then Khenpo talked about different categories of mental illness. And then the consequence of such mental afflictions. So all the negative thinkings will eventually lead into mental afflictions. So the consequence will be even the smallest problem will become a big negativity in the mind. So on the other side, if you always think positively, and then so we can see that in our daily life. So some people are just naturally happy, even when they face some difficulties, they would see it like, okay, I can do this, no big deal. But if a negative person, they will stick in the negativities. So that all that negativities will grow stronger and leading to mental illness. That's why Khenpo here talked about different kind of mental illness. One is obsessive compulsive disorders or OCD. I'm not going to go through this. People just feel like they must do something because and such. And then the other ones, the persecutory delusion, right? They think they are harmed by others or by ghosts or those delusions. They even there is no evidence. They completely believe that, and this really drives people nuts or crazy or just really crazy, not just normally crazy. They have to be admitted into hospital for those. So this is because lack of mind training. Because the mind becomes because they cannot become soft and gentle, and they become like because we don't go to tame our mind, so the mind become rigid, and we know a rigid mind is easy to break, so become fragile. So and then when the ego is broken down, and that is how they suffer. And Shantideva in the way of Bodhisattva says, heat and cold, wind and rain, sickness, prison, beatings, are not fret about such things. To do so only aggregates my trouble. So here reminds us to do the mind training to tame our mind, to make it flexible and soft and adjustable, keep open to all situations, not only one way, that the way we want to see. So the most severe form of mental illness, of course, is to commit suicide. So there are levels here. Khenpo talk from beginning to the subtle ones to the most severe one. They just because they are so into their own mind and they think there's no way out in this world, and so they were so unhappy, no hope left, so they eventually commit suicide. Okay, so all these mental illness in all the way to committing suicide, just because they don't understand the secret of the mind. So now we are going into this big subject, the secret of the mind. What is the secret of the mind? So Khenpo says, if we don't know how the mind works on the relative level, we are very likely to ignore our mental problems and feel that we are mentally healthy and that nothing is wrong. But if you don't take good care of your mind, a tiny harm could become a wound that never heals, even causing you to end this precious life. So what we need to do is we need to analyze the mind in great detail and render a vivid picture of people's mindset that holds true even in the modern era. So this teaching, it has some time, but even the Buddhism even track back more time. So if we really use the Buddhist method to analyze our mind, to train our mind, to understand ourselves, then we will be able to deal with all sorts of suffering, right? And happiness as well. If we never come to know the innermost secret of the mind, no matter how hard we try to seek happiness and avoid suffering, we will find our efforts to be useless, leaving us to wander in samsara continuously and to experience endless suffering. So Khenpo also want to remind us all mental disorders are created by people's fabricated thoughts, and have absolutely no intrinsic existence. If you go examine it, it's just an illusion created by the mind. It's not really solid fact or something would stay there forever. If your mind wants that's hurting, damage, and those kinds of activities stay forever, they will stay. But if you tell your mind, say, well, I don't want that, and then it's the first step to deal with the problem. Okay, I need to speed up because I don't want to take all the time. So due to a lack of the education and the training of the mind, people allow the emotion to lead them to conduct improper behaviors, which results in the rapid growth of greed, hatred, and ignorance. So this is normally how it happens. Sometimes we may see a seemingly nice person. He may be very nice to friends, relatives, and neighbors, but then at certain times he may do these terrible things that nobody expects him to do. So that is the lack of training of the mind. So Khenpo concludes, say it's absolutely necessary for us to understand the most deeply hidden secret of our mind. So if we want to understand, and then next step will be making changes. If we understand how mind normally tend to thinking in the old ways, then we have to change that. If we always think negatively, we have to make that change. One method to do this is to understand the cause and effect of the things that you encounter rather than becoming confused or deluded by them. Moreover, second, do not cling to whatever happens in life and develop an attitude in which you allow nature to take its course. So what does it mean? It means keep your joyful mind and always open to any options. Don't say I only want happiness. Open to some suffering, open to suffering as well. If happiness come, be happy. If suffering come, be happy. Same. So keep the open mind. That's my understanding. I'm not going to go through this. Just say, so in whatever situation, just keep you rejoice, keep your joyful mind. Yeah, this is up to page 28, and I think in the note it says up to page 14. I think that is wrong. I apologize. So let's see. Oh, I forget about the meditation part. Next time I will prepare meditation. So let's see if there is any comments or questions before we go to the questions I put out.
I know it's a test, maybe a little bit of logistic. I think on the notice in WhatsApp group, we were all asked to read 14 pages.
Yes. Yeah, it's a typo. It should be 28 page. Yeah.
So if that's one lesson by one lesson each time, let's just make that clear.
Yeah.
The questions, do you have all the questions for the 10 sessions already, or just one by one?
The
point is,
I manufactured
exactly. I mean, it's depending on, you need to prepare, maybe spend some time prepare so that everyone receive the questions, just like, other classes. If we
will do next time, for next week, I'll put the questions out.
So we have a, those points to focus to those questions, let's have them answered before even joining. Otherwise, it could be a little challenging.
Yes.
Okay, great.
We can go section by section. Yeah, my question is also proposed put out in the same order, in the order of Tempe's teaching. I can also put the questions in the chat box if you need here. This is yeah. Well, we're trying out this new format, so we can adjust it anytime if something is kind of so I'm open to all suggestions. So I did intend to include a meditation session, but for some reason I forgot. So next time we'll start with maybe 10 minutes of meditation before. We will start from Homage. Okay, if no one share their thoughts, I'm going to get people to answer questions then. So the first question, why did Tenpe Nyima write this text?
So why did he write this text?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's an interesting question. From the text itself, I don't recall. Maybe it's written somewhere, but that part I don't recall why he wrote this text. But so I don't know if someone has an official answer coming from Khenpo Sodargye's Khenpo Sodargye, because that's a good point, because normally when we receive the questions in advance, it also helps. So this part I don't remember. Maybe Khenpo mentioned that somewhere. So I don't know if someone has an answer. I can come up with my own answer, but I would be curious to see if someone has an official answer that comes from the text that I maybe overlooked. So I don't know what you prefer. Should I just give my own personal answer, or
give your own personal answer? It's better.
It's better.
Yeah, I don't know. Your language is always better.
I don't know if it's better, but I think it's essential to write a text like this because we're talking about the ordinary people. Like a few things in this text that struck my attention, like when mentioned, like ordinary people. Ordinary people have an ordinary mind. An ordinary mind is a mind that is swayed by external causes and conditions. So if you're an ordinary person, it means that whatever comes to us basically affects who we are, affects what we do, and affects how we respond to things. And then basically whatever happens is that it's going to be causing suffering, or any kind of suffering or happiness, depending on how we define suffering and happiness. I would be curious to see in Tibetan what words they used, like if they really use suffering and happiness, or if they had other words, like for instance, suffering often comes from dukkha, but dukkha is not suffering. Dukkha is a more general sense of like things that make us unhappy, not at ease, frustrated. Like it's a very general term. So I don't know if it's specifically in Tibetan, if this was about suffering and happiness, or more about attachment, aversion, or stuff like that. I don't know exactly. But definitely this is essential, because that's what we go through all the time. We go through things that make us happy and things that make us unhappy. And then just keeping that ordinary mind will be something that will just dig us deeper and deeper and deeper into the cycles of samsara. So to my understanding, a text like this is extremely essential to be able to progressively change those experiences that we have of happiness and suffering into something that would be positive and turning them into the Dharma.
Okay. More?
I guess for now, maybe that's enough. But that would be my first. And then also, I can add more. Maybe because the Jigme Tenpe Nyima is an amazing Dzogchen master, and then the Dzogchen masters are the people who understand the mind completely and perfectly. So this is something great. And then when I read this, I sometimes you read sections and you think like, oh, this is such a great like pit instruction that are just embedded into this wonderful way of looking at something that looks so ordinary and normal. So I find that this is an amazing text coming from an amazing mind that looks at, that understands and experiences the mind as it truly is, and then gives us these amazing advice. So that would be, I think, why such a great master would write this out of compassion as well to all the other beings, because the realized mind is a completely compassionate mind. So yeah, I could keep on going, but I guess that would be my quick understanding of this at this moment.
That's a very good supplementary point. It's a great Dzogchen master who understands the mind the best perfectly. Yeah.
It's not theoretical. It's not a theoretical understanding. It's a completely experiential understanding. It's a yogic understanding of the mind.
Yeah, wonderful. Well,
okay, a couple of words on the it's I don't know if this is the official, but you already showed on the screen that the author actually wanted to share his indispensable instructions. Sometimes when these short shastras are usually very pithful, right? It's all the pith instructions that could I think many times it's for those that are more ready, not necessarily 100%, but when someone is ready, you hear all these pith instructions, you like this. That's probably one of the greatest intention. And of course, as we already talked, suffering and happiness are the things we experience every moment after moment, especially suffering. I think many people started with suffering because it's, again, part of dukkha, suffering, and then why suffering could help. Because in many times, if you're not a practitioner, suffering could stop your practice, right? But this suffering is now a nutrition. You can use it. That's first step. The second step will be happiness, right? See through the happiness, because suffering, as many of us have studied, suffering could start with happiness, or because of happiness. Why get into the trap? Because you thought it's happiness, and then there are all these kind of sufferings after that. One little point to add is actually this. Yesterday morning, phone, when you were translating Zungsa Rinpoche's, actually suffering, many religions or even ordinary people wanted to get rid of. Right? That's the way to renunciate this samsara. But then happiness, many people pursue happiness, but some religions also like not stay away, but renunciate in order to be liberated. Also renunciate the happiness because they realize what is true underneath happiness. However, per Nusa Rinpoche, that neutral, that's not happy, not suffering, those neutral states there's only one religion or one teaching in the world that ask the practitioners to renunciate, which is Buddhism. So that's also set Buddhism very unique. May not necessarily discuss in this detail in this context, but just reminded me. Great, thank you.
Thank you. Very good point. Because when I did that translation, I was very impressed by that segment of the teaching. And he says, because we know suffering is not good, we don't want it. And now for practitioners, we know happiness is also not good. It can be obstacles for the path. So we don't want it. So most of the Buddhism practitioners, so they turn to seek the calmness, which means neutral feelings, not happiness, not suffering, but kind of calm. But Nusa Rinpoche says, these two we should get rid of. This is not the goal of Buddhism practice. We need to get transcendent over that. So
beyond hope and fear.
yes, very good point.
Yeah.
Any more comments? Turn on your view.
I can say more.
Yeah, go ahead.
Suffering as well, I think, is actually the Four Noble Truths start with suffering. First we need to acknowledge suffering, and then this is sometimes the biggest steps because we often don't even realize that we suffer. So I think that there's so much wisdom and compassion in just this teaching about, like, realize that you are suffering, like realize that there are things in your life that are not good, because so many people are just staying and dipping in the cesspool, and then they're just in, and then they complacent in that state of suffering. So I think this is such an important element to start with. And I guess, I don't know about anybody else, but my Buddhist path didn't start with happiness. Personally, what led me to Buddhism, it's not because I was so happy that I needed something to help me contain my happiness. At least personally.
That's usually golf, not Buddhism practice.
Yeah. And then your golf is so bad that eventually you need something else to cope with the fact that you cannot play well. But I think that this is, and then like Thich Nhat Hanh had this beautiful book, and the title of the book itself, like No Mud, No Lotus. Like, I find that this is such an amazing thing. The lotus is so important in Buddhism, where basically it grows in the mud, but eventually is not affected by the mud. It grows out of the mud and becomes this beautiful flowers, but the mud is necessary. So it's interesting to think about that. And I remember as well, Dzongsa Rinpoche was talking about that at some point, like almost being a bit sarcastic about that, saying like, if there was no suffering, there would be no Buddhism.
Yeah.
So I just think that this is also very important. Starting with suffering makes sense as well from this kind of teaching, that this is what we witness the most, that this is what is so powerful to us. And then happiness, very often when we're happy, we don't think too much about Buddhism. And this is also part of the teaching later in this text, to remember that happiness must be still also part of the path. Yeah.
I would talk on that note. Yeah, because I would say that, suffering is, it's maybe more obvious. So in some ways I see that it's much easier to look at suffering and how to transform that into enlightenment than looking at happiness. Happiness is, when I was reading the text, it seems like there's especially when I was watching Khenpo Sodargye's video, and he's talking about, how the negativity in suffering, right? That we've got to watch out for that negativity. We've got to transform that negativity into positivity. And then positivity is associated with happiness or joyfulness. But, I'm really looking forward to, see how he talks about transforming happiness, because happiness, on one hand, it's something that's going to happen just like suffering, right? So how do we handle that happiness? How are we able to enjoy that happiness without feeling guilty that we're enjoying the happiness, or not, not letting our ego, like he talks about, you have good conditions, you have happiness. So all of a sudden your ego grows and your practice diminishes, that kind of thing. So my point just being is that in some ways, even though suffering is maybe much harder to overcome, I think it's almost easier to see, okay, we can focus on suffering. We can see how we can transform that into enlightenment, but happiness, that's a whole nother, that's a whole nother challenge.
Excellent point.
My 2 cents.
Yeah, I think we'll see later in the later text what he says.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, when I talk about it's easier when suffering, then you realize, right? You want to get out, but how you use the happiness as the path. I remember one of my friends when she just started the 4 common preliminary. She cried for 3 days. She said, I was so stupid. I always thought I have money, I'm healthy. She was a doctor. She thought she's living in very happy life. And when she studied the 4 common preliminaries, she suddenly realized whatever what she believed in was not true. Then she cry, and then she realized all this happiness is impermanent. It's all fake. So for her, it's a big how can I say? I think yeah, it's a trash. So anyway, I think that made me think about happiness. Actually, we have to realize when we are happiness, because me and always have some kind of fighting. He said, "Wow, why can I go to golf? I want to enjoy my Buddhist when happiness." But for me, I'm like, anyway. So we have to talk about it. And if you want, you can share more. So that's my feeling. I think it's harder, but this is a super important. How to use the happiness as the path.
Mm-hmm. All right. Yeah, all good points here. So we want to wait and see. So you have studied this text. What's your understanding about in the later text and what the Khenpo says about how to use happiness?
Yeah, I don't remember. But I don't remember like on the spot, but no, I don't quite remember. But I still remember I first learned this at the beginning of the summer in 2020 when we were in the deep middle of COVID. I was, now on one hand, I think I was in fear for months. That I really had the fear for months. And this text really put my mind, well, really changed my perspective. And I think I accomplished a lot that year, just that summer. And part of the learning was I was part of the the team, the volunteer team that put together like transcript the video to words. So I think I was going through the final round. So I really went through word by word. Sorry, I couldn't. I think I'll quickly pick up once we get there. I only did the first lesson because to me the challenge is put everything I want to say in English because a lot of the words are new to me. But I hopefully I will contribute more intellectually instead of just regurgitate the words from the text. Yeah.
Great, thank you. I didn't know you were one of those put the text together. Thank you.
That was, I think that was the best way to learn. It's that
it is.
you know, instead of just doing it one time, you're doing like 20 times. And that was just, you know, unavoidably you're gonna digest the meaning more and really make sense. So whenever I think of this, just the title, it gave me so much energy, right? It empowers me. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, let me know if I talk too much. To my defense, I haven't participated in the last the Langri Tampa's A verses, so I'm just compensating for not being able to talk for a couple of weeks. I just wanted to add to this that to me one of the very important element is found on page 4. I don't know if you want to scroll up or down. I don't see what's going on. The beginning, the top of page 4, actually. Yes, like Dharma, that one that starts like Dharma practitioners or whoever make the choice to transform both suffering and happiness into enlightenment, the path of enlightenment, the path to enlightenment. So to me, there are like 2 super important things here. First would be Dharma practitioners. Like, what do we mean exactly by Dharma practitioner here? And I think the answer starts with the second part, which is make the choice to transform suffering and happiness onto the path. And then I think the make the choice cannot be read lightly. It's not like just like, okay, good, yeah. But make the choice has a very deep implication. Like it means that there's a certain level of awareness, there's a certain level of presence that when those things come up, then they have the presence of mind to be able to also use them as they come. So it's not just a choice that you make like from now on, blah, 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 but it's a choice that is negotiated on a day-to-day, and moment by moment. And this requires a great amount of clarity and a great amount of presence, a great amount of awareness to be able to do this. And so having the choice basically to me, is the opposite of being distracted. Because if I make the choice, it's because on my day-to-day thing, I have presence of mind, I have enough space in my mind that I can see the suffering or I can see the happiness, and then I can, use them in the proper way. Otherwise, the ordinary mind is a distracted mind, is a mind that is basically occupied by thoughts and completely disoriented and just engulfed in so many layers of darkness that this choice cannot really be made consciously. So that's a little bit how I see it. So when I come back to Dharma practitioners, it means it's not the average Joe that just does it. It's a trained mind. It's a mind that has been through and through, and then that is able to do this practice. So I find that very important. These 2 parts of that paragraph.
Excellent point. Love it.
Yeah. And that is an excellent point, simply because if you read through, then it says we have to pay homage to Avalokitesvara, Bodhisattva, simply because of the practice of Tonglen, which is not the easiest thing to practice and achieve. There are some excellent points throughout this whole series here. I find it very valuable. One of the first things for me is the fact that happiness can be derived from the wrong sources, right? And that is something that we can all fall prey to, unfortunately. And like you stated earlier, suffering is something that we bring to the forefront as our source of unhappiness, but that can also happen. Suffering can also happen from happiness. That's a concept that not everybody understands. Secondly, for me, is that I learned that wisdom is knowledge applied. So we can have all the knowledge that we're getting from this text, but if we don't practice it, if we don't apply it, that's all it is knowledge. It does not become wisdom, So those are the things that I got from this that are really important for me personally. And it's interesting that you stated that most people would get into Buddhism because of a suffering state. I got into Buddhism the opposite. I was a very happy person. I had made up my mind 2.5 years ago not to do things solely out of obligation and following the path of trying to make everybody happy. And I opened my heart. And I believe in the law of attraction in the universe, and it was amazing what I attracted to myself. And one of the things that I was attracted to and found a path to naturally through an open heart was Buddhism. So to me, it came from a state of happiness rather than a state of suffering. So wanted to add that.
Amazing.
But this, out of everything that we've studied in this study group, I think for me this is probably the most valuable. I thought I'd say that. Thank you.
Wow, it's really rare that you study because you're happy. Most of people I know, 99% is because suffering.
I'm just a place in my life that I'm now retired. I no longer have to succumb to things that I don't especially enjoy. So everything that I do now is my own choice, rather than doing it through obligation. And this is my choice.
It's wonderful.
Yeah, my retirement in my old age is not the end of my life. It's the beginning of a new life, and this is part of this is a very positive part of my journey.
Perfect.
Yeah. Thank
Good.
you.
I think I'm one of those studied from suffering. I think
What's your story?
It's I like what Khenpo Sodargye said in the beginning of the lecture, and that's the fact that we can remain peaceful in the face of whatever situation we find ourselves through this study and through putting this text into practice, right?
Mhm.
And to me, that is the most attractive part, is the fact that whatever situation we find ourselves, we can remain. Right. That, and also learning how to meditate properly. Right.
Peace.
So we don't want to only avoid suffering and embrace happiness. I guess that's what we want to be able to embrace both suffering and happiness. Now, this again, the next sentence is like, unafraid of suffering, they do not indulge in the endless quest for temporal happiness. And I think we can even flip it back. Unafraid of happiness, they do not indulge in the endless quest for temporal suffering. Because they can go both ways. And this is definitely from a Catholic background. You're not supposed to be too happy.
Right.
Really?
There's an embedded guilt in Catholicism. Yes. Like you don't be too happy. Like it's not good. It's not,
so. Yeah.
So that's why
That was my entire life. That was my entire life. You know, you don't deserve to be happy unless you suffer first.
Right.
Yeah, you have to earn your happiness.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's why flipping, like unafraid of happiness, also should apply.
Exactly.
Not just unafraid of suffering.
But
Suffering.
we don't want
I
it.
agree. I
I
agree.
still only want happy.
You have to know how to you have to know how to handle your happiness and your suffering. So it's like you have to break out all of your Buddhist tools, right? You've got to have your clear mind from meditation. You have to have your wisdom, you know, for sure awareness, right? So it's very, very interesting, this text.
Yeah. We have to be thankful for our suffering and those instances, because we're going to learn from them.
Right. Yeah,
Which
exactly.
ultimately brings us happiness.
Yeah.
Well, same thing, thankful for the happiness. In a way, you earn it, and in another way, you can use it for practice. I still just want the happiness. It's okay to want happiness. Why not? So it's like when people try to cultivate compassion, right? Bodhicitta. So you want other people, because this is what everybody wants to pursue, happiness, right? So because we want happiness, other people also want happiness. So we want to do whatever we can to place them in that position, right? So in my mind, it's okay to want to be happy. There's nothing wrong about it, but just be open to suffering as well, to neutral status as well, and view this all every moment is your moment for practice. Be aware and use the opportunity.
Yes.
One of the things I found valuable and something that I do is gratefulness. With the idea, you know, in believing wholeheartedly that everything is impermanent, including this happy moment, we should understand it for what it is and be grateful for this happy moments, simply because it may not be happy. It's always impermanent, right? You know,
Yes.
so this beautiful moment that we have to be grateful for, you know, and that for me usually makes it into an even happier situation, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just want to have some comments about happiness and suffering, and everybody's sharing like how they got into Buddhism, and that got me to think about how I got into Buddhism. I was much younger when I got into Buddhism. I was very happy, and I felt I was so grateful. I want to really share the, you know, gratefulness, and I felt like that partly because direct and indirectly practicing Buddhism. That was my thoughts, right? But then over the years, you know, challenges emerged, emerged like one after another. And then for many years, I was really deep in the suffering mode. And then I was looking, eventually found Khenpo Sodargye. And I think that then I start to realize, you know, what Buddhism is really teaching. Right? It's how we perceive what's going on. So I have to start by saying, like, there are different types of suffering and happiness. There are this ordinary people's elusive perception about happiness and suffering. And there are also what we could call that relative state, I don't know. Or there are also like a deeper, more fundamental or more absolute suffering, which come you know, really derive from our understanding about karma, and the karma may manifest, you know, start to emerge. So sometimes you feel like, oh, you know, I start when I first started, I was happy and everything. I was so lucky. Everything goes so well. But then when you start to practice, then things start to come up. I feel like sometimes when our karma, especially bad karma, start to mature, manifest, and we actually go into that. But if we have the tools of transforming whatever we encounter, and very much depends on, are we practitioner, are we ordinary people just don't like uncomfortable situation, or are we the practitioner, Buddhist practitioner, right? Really turn things around. Then we really, okay, at the beginning we probably think, oh, suffering is suffering. Later on we think, oh, suffering is so valuable and teach me lesson, that's source of wisdom. Ultimately probably will reach a state, whatever happens is no good and no bad, as long as can facilitate my practice. That's that's virtuous, is that the word? And valuable. Otherwise, even a very comfortable, very happy situation, if that somehow prevent you going to your self-cultivation, it may not be a good thing. And so I guess we want not talk about happiness or suffering in a very linear level. It's probably there's multiple layers of understanding about these concepts. Yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Very good.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm very jealous that I enter Buddhist because because the happiness, right? I wish I had that. So why I studied Buddhist is because I thought I was going to bankruptcy. So because we lost a lot of money, and then I was suffering and I want to look for the answer. But after so many years, even I'm not a good practitioner because I was, still doing my business until last year, retired. So I can more focus now. And then when I think back, actually, I'm very thankful for that experience. Yeah. So if I didn't almost lost all my money, maybe would not push me really go into Buddhist, and because then I would just, I thought I was happy, and then I would not go to find another way. Well, so now I think I'm grateful for the suffering. That's my sharing.
Right.
I had been searching probably for about 30 years, trying to find happiness in different ways, different places, different scenarios that I was putting together for myself, and that wasn't working. And I just found that I had to accept life for what it was, but the most important thing is to be true to myself and to be true to everyone else that I encountered. By opening my heart. And it just so happened that I walked into Buddhist temple here at that state of happiness that I was in, probably about 6 months prior. And then everything just fell into my lap, I was in the right place. I felt finally, after my entire life of searching, I felt at home with Mahayana Buddhism. And so that's how it happened for me, rather than being in a state of unhappiness or suffering, right? So that's, and then everything else just happened. It was beautiful. It was also simple. It wasn't difficult. I met my wife. Everything was cool. Good.
Excellent.
Yeah.
It's not just happened. It's just it's a great time for you now.
Manifested.
Yeah,
It's my time. Yeah, exactly. But
Good karma.
seriously, yeah, karma. Yeah.
Good karma.
Good karma, absolutely. Good previous merits and the virtues manifest itself.
Yeah.
And good karma for Lee as well, because look where you are now.
Exactly.
Wow, I need to have more merit.
Yeah.
Okay, I think our time is up.
Can we
Okay.
continue for another 25 minutes?
Answer
To
Yeah.
finish the question, especially I think number 8, I think it's very, also 7, yeah, the habits, the habitual thinking about.
Yeah,
suffering.
okay, we can continue. I don't have anything else to do. So
We can start with 7 and 8 because it's really relevant and it probably needs a more discussion.
okay.
Yeah,
Let's,
I'm willing to continue if we
all
want to
right, I'm
continue.
okay too.
Definitely. Yeah.
All right, let's do it.
I just got to bow
Feel
out for
free to
2 minutes. I'll
leave.
be
You
back.
to leave.
Okay.
So okay, I like to hear what you have to say about question 7.
Okay, sorry, let me just read it. What is the consequence if we make a habit out of perceiving only the suffering? Is the question asking like as opposed to
You don't have to answer according to the text. You can just answer out of your own understanding. It's okay.
okay.
More like open to discussion here.
Okay. I mean it's what was said earlier is just still kind of lingering with me. So I'm gonna kind of go on that where he mentioned like being able to make that choice of choosing practice, like by Dharma practitioners. I'm kind of just still thinking about that. And how a lot of work goes into being able to make that choice in moments of suffering and happiness. Right now, I can only resonate with the suffering part because I would say I'm in full suffering mode right now. So this teaching has come at a good time. And just, I've been contemplating this text all week and thinking about how it's so easy that to tell ourselves to accept suffering and to be joyful about it and kind of psych ourselves up that we'll do this and we'll accept it when it comes up and view it differently. But when it's actually happening and when I'm being faced with suffering, like face to face with suffering, it's harder because you're so like hijacked by the emotions. And I'm realizing how it's impossible to just rely on an intellectual understanding and just making that agreement with yourself that you're going to view it as an opportunity. So like after contemplating these teachings all week and listening to Khenpo's recordings, I can like better understand that, yes, I need to study these teachings, but that's not enough. I have to contemplate it, but that's not enough. I also have to take action and practice. And I have to do this over and over and over again, repeatedly, every single time. And that it takes time to train the mind to be able to make that choice every single time. And I'm learning that like I need to be able to have the courage to endure those moments of suffering in order to be able to understand that I can use it as an opportunity. And to also not try, like I realize I'm someone that avoids suffering and will try and trick my mind into feeling positive. Like even if I'm suffering in one moment and I tell myself like, oh, this is a great opportunity to practice. It's almost like I'm doing it to kind of trick my mind into a positive mindset so I can avoid the negative feelings and feel positive and then practice from there. But I can see where I'm lacking courage to be able to be in those hard, dark feelings and rather than tricking the mind, actually like using that negativity and actually transforming it, as opposed to just using practice as a way to push it away. It's like it's not really transforming the negativity. But it's also it's such a surreal feeling to like to be suffering, but also be so genuinely joyful that I'm suffering, because now I can better understand this teaching and look at it more closely and more deeply. I find that I'm better, I can easily practice when I'm happy, but the practice doesn't have as much depth as when I'm suffering. So when I'm in full suffering mode, like right now, I'm just better able to connect with the teaching, and I'm better able to actually contemplate it and let it open up in my mind. And yeah, but right now it's like I'm realizing how hard it is, how much courage is required to constantly endure the hardship and to not be scared of it and to not push it away. Because like in that moment it's like where I can open up more and use it towards my practice. So it's like I'm still learning, but gosh, it's so weird how hard it is and how awful it is, but how amazing it is at the same time.
Mm. Okay. I mean, I would like to ask everybody the question. So when you face the hardship, are you trying to trick your mind, or you try to seek an answer? Why is this? Or want to reason with the reality, reasoning out the reality? I just find out for myself, if I try to trick myself, it's not going to work. It doesn't work for me. I have to know the underlying reasons. Why is this? That's how I got into Buddhism, actually. I think I had a period, I had a divorce, and I was a single mother. I make not much money as a postdoc, and I had to raise 2 kids, and I had to work. All those things, just like made me kind of want to look for an answer. I was not a stupid person. I was very very proud of myself, of my intelligence, but I was in miserable situation, so I wanted to know why. So that's why that's what pushed me to look for all sorts of different teachings, and I landed in Buddhism eventually. I went through Christianity, went through some other like teachers, and all for a very short time. None of them could give me answers, and eventually, Buddhism didn't give me answers right away. But I felt it was like it would not give me more conflict, at least. So I think gradually I kind of reasoned out, when I didn't have money, just because I didn't do practice generosity enough in the past life. When I had to go through the divorce, that's because maybe in the past I owed this person so much emotional feelings, whatever. So all those things kind of like gradually I come to understand the reality. It's really a manifestation of your own karma, my own karma, right? Once I get to realize that everything is just okay, that's how it is. So be it. So I don't know, maybe each person have a different approach to approach the suffering and negativity. That's my approach. I want to understand why, and then I do what I can. I may not be able to change it right away, but if we keep doing this, it will make it turn. But if it doesn't turn this lifetime, that's okay too. So
I can feel the pain Well, it's easy to say, but when come to practice, I think it's still very, very hard.
Basically, to me personally, it is very hard to tell. Am I like cycle my way out of the situation, or I'm just staying numb or not responsive to this, just pretend I'm a stone, or I really have developed the emptiness or the compassion or the wisdom that really won't take the suffering as a very hurting feeling. It's hard. So it partly also come with how much your self, self-awareness, and also internal growth. So you allow that space and time for yourself to grow, and to tell these two apart. Am I really truly so wise that I can and strong, and I'm facing the horrific situation, or I am just temporarily numb myself, or so I appear to be strong and independent. I felt like that comes more with practice. So I will not judge myself in the middle. And I found it's very helpful to me is keep patting myself on the shoulder, saying, "Oh, you're doing a good job. At least you're so fortunate that you're on the path." I know, from day one. So I joined the group 8 years ago. I felt like finally, after all these years of searching, I finally find my path. I find the teacher who can truly lead me to enlightenment, even though I'm not there yet, but I'm on my way there. So I should give myself time. If I couldn't practice enough, and I still say, "Hey, you're doing a good job. You try your best, and at least you're better off than before, because before you were really in dark and you were really struggling, right?" So, I felt like that keep me going, so I won't break. Otherwise, if you expect so high of yourself that you break, right? So you felt like you work hard enough, but you never get there. But it takes time.
I want to echoing on Francisca. Sorry, I was only able to hear half of Irene's part, but I could feel that also. I guess, again, I think each time I heard talk, I was actually quite happy, because what's popped in my mind was almost, okay, this is a great practitioner. She is, what's the best word? Qualified. We use the word faculty here, right, in the Buddhism context. 8 years, just give it more time. It's really not a matter of if you are or you have reached your destination. It's that kind of confidence or assurance that you are on the right track, right? After so many, I know in our life, or the past few decades, we all tried different things, right? I always like to use the example of the movie Matrix, when Neo was trying to get off the car, and one of the ladies says, "Hey, Neo, you have been there. You've tried everything else, right? See here." Little kind of like my situation. In Chinese, we have a proverb like, you use medication to a dead horse as if you could save him, make him alive, kind of thing. However, it may not be that kind of ignorant. I think to now, I highly trust, have the confidence on the teacher. It was that the guru or master were there, just looking at us, right? When we, moving around and trying different things. But anyways, the good news, again, is as we practice, the it's noticeable. Compare with those kind of things that we call suffering 10 years ago. In today, it's pretty much nothing, right? If we spend like 3 days, can't sleep, worrying about one thing, today maybe just a couple of minutes, right? Or seconds, or even, nothing. Kind of thing like that, right? Noticeable, and then we're sure we're on the right track. Again, my old example again. If I have a good GPS that work, my tank is full, the car is mechanically sure that can work, not too much to worry about. Give me 2 hours, I'll be there, right? So those are the good news. So although we had spent quite some time talking about suffering, but still we have that kind of happiness either awaiting or just now actually being with us, right? With our group, with our master, with the teachings, with the assurance we're studying kind of the pinnacle, right? Mount Everest, the best. Okay, anyways, thank you.
For me, the most important word in question 7 is perceiving. Because one thing that I realized many, many years ago is the only thing that we can control in our entire lives. Can't control anything else but our perception. And the perception in our mind is extremely powerful. Without suffering, you cannot have happiness. And I know duality is not necessarily the best, the best form, but it's true. I mean, we appreciate happiness that much more because of suffering. I just found that with every situation that I found challenging in my life, I realized that changing my perception in whichever way works for me in order to manifest a more favorable situation, perception and how I perceive that situation was the most important. And once I practiced that, I found that it wasn't that difficult, really, and like I said earlier, gratefulness, compassion, empathy for the other person. If your suffering is coming from an interaction from somebody else, those things for me are the ingredients to transforming that suffering into a state of happiness, right? So it's all about perception. Yeah, just thought I'd share that.
Since we're only covering people were only asked to read the first 14 pages, and let's go beyond. Page 15, just the beginning, the top of page 15, where it starts with the secret of the mind. And then there's this quote from Thogme Nyima, the first paragraph of page 15. So you covered it as well before in your summary of whenever we are armed by sentient beings or anything else, if we make a habit out of perceiving only the suffering, then when even the smallest problem comes up, it will cause enormous anguish in our mind. I think that this is a good example of a teaching master who's basically talking about the mind. I just find that part so beautiful. And then here I feel like there is one element that is something that is very important, not written here, but very important, is the attention, like where we put our attention. Like if I set my mind onto that thing that causes me difficulties or suffering, it will just make it real as suffering. Mm-hmm. So that part is such an important element. And then coming back to making that choice, like when we have the chance of having a space, space is needed. Space in the mind is needed to be able to do this. But out of suffering, sometimes there's this moment of clarity, that little struck of lightning in the dark sky where boom, suddenly we can see something. And then that little moment is where we can have that little space and decide to set our attention somewhere else, not just onto the suffering. I think this is such a powerful statement to have in mind, and it's through practice that sometimes we can get to that little moment of clarity. So I just find that this is very profound, that little part that talks about the secret. An interesting title, The Secret of the Mind. But yeah, definitely this attention, the energy that we set on, and mostly we set the energy on the negative. That's what we focus our attention to. So I just find that this was a very beautiful statement here.
Very good. So to put together, one is you can look things from the other side. Two, you can distract yourself by doing something else that you're more interested in to distract your attention from your focus point.
For me personally, there are two types of suffering that I suffer that I need to share. First of all, is physical suffering. I mean, I have a sore back, or I may have this and that. And what I'm being taught by one of my teachers is that is always an indication that there's something else going on. If you feel something physical, and if you look into it, it's usually something either metaphysical or something in your mind, that you have to deal with. There's something you need to learn about that particular pain. But the other suffering for me, it all comes from my ego. It all comes from what I perceive that I am entitled to, and self-entitlement, right? And also you can't take everything personally. You have to realize that that person had just made a left-hand turn in front of you without putting their signal on. Don't take it personally. They didn't do it specifically to bother you. Right? It's a matter of perception. There could be something else going on with them, right? But otherwise, I think it's all about, for me, my ego, my ego self, and what I perceive as entitlement. If I take that out of the equation, then the suffering is minimized, right? And so just thought I'd throw that in there. Thank you.
Good. Yeah. One of my friends, he always think his parents is just don't like him, hate him. I said, look, the parents have parents' limitation. They always love the kids, but limited by their own capacity. That's how much they can do for you. You cannot expect them to do more they can offer. So just take the facts and just love them back. There's no other choice.
Could we, if you don't mind, go to page 26, the bottom of page 26? This is Thogme Zangpo's song.
Mm-hmm.
And this is such a beautiful, I'm sure like this must be a Vajra song. Like it's just written a song here, but it's definitely a Vajra song. And Thogme Zangpo is the composer of the 37 practices of Bodhisattva. If I guess some know him. And when I was reading this, I thought this is such a beautiful text. So I don't know if everybody has read it, or if people focus maybe on the first 14 pages. So
yes.
Is it possible that we just read these paragraphs?
Yes, please.
Yeah, I'm not saying me, but if someone wants to read.
Let's read together.
Like the illusory heap of a body, which like others I possess. If it falls sick, so be it. In sickness, I'll rejoice, for it will exhaust my negative karma from the past. And after all, many forms of Dharma practice are for the sake of purifying the two obscurations. If I am healthy, so be it. In freedom from sickness, I'll rejoice. When body and mind are well and at ease, virtuous practice can develop and gain strength. And after all, the way to give meaning to this human life is to devote body, speech, and mind to virtue. And if I face poverty, so be it. In lack of riches, I'll rejoice. I will have nothing to protect and nothing to lose. Whatever quarrels and conflicts there might be, all arise out of desire for wealth and gain. That's certain. If I find wealth, so be it. In prosperity, I'll rejoice. If I can increase the stock of my merits, that will suffice. Whatever benefit and happiness there might be now and in the future, all result from merits I have gained. That's certain. So as Dharma practitioners in sickness will rejoice in freedom from sickness, will rejoice in the lack of riches, will rejoice, and in prosperity will also rejoice. If we can learn not to cling to things strongly, we can cultivate an attitude of letting it be, which will certainly rid ourselves of unnecessary suffering.
Okay, I think that's good.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
We might have to end. Just as all the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas dedicated merit, so likewise I also dedicate all merit to the cause of enlightenment for all sentient beings. By this accumulation of merit, may I obtain all sin, omniscience, and may all faults be defeated. The whirling turbulent waves of birth, aging, sickness, and death from this ocean of samsara, may I liberate beings. Just as the Bodhisattva Manjushri attained omniscience and Samantabhadra too. All these merits now I dedicate to train and follow in their footsteps. As all the victorious Buddhas of past, present, and future praise dedication as supreme. So now I dedicate all these roots of virtue for all beings to perfect good actions. On my home, Vajra Group at my city home. On our home, Band Group at my city home. On our home, Band Group at my city home.